just with a piece of spoken word. And this is an element that we're going to have monthly as well. I see the sun as it rises, but it also lets me see the earth. I want to search for that key to take us out this misery in our surroundings. People frowning, drowning in an empty life, grounded for that sense within. Justice for sin. In a land where sinners win, the good man flounders, pays to be a scoundrel. How did we fall so far? Somehow I know it isn't right. Like we're going to find a sanctuary hidden out of sight. If it's not my fellow goons, it's hurricanes and earthquakes, tornadoes and typhoons. It's like the whole earth's cursed. Some people take the coward's way, the sickness make the hearse nurse. Some people put the purse first, looking for meaning, glory, fame. But the story stays anonymous like they never signed their name. Ink stains on the pages, ingrained with their rages, working for the weekend, but slaves to their wages. Wish I could be courageous and change this whole earth scene. I'll come clean. I know the man I should have been. That person's just a lost dream. Man, I wish it could be different. Wish I could make a difference. Wish I could still feel the same way I felt as an infant. I want the brokenness undone. I want the color to come back, the light of the sun. I want the tears turned to smiles, justice for the child, love for the woman, and dignity for the defiled. But where can we turn? We spend our lives designing bridges just to sit and watch them burn. I guess we got to do our best. Do our work and hope for heaven, where we truly find our rest. But if heaven's where the saints go, where the Creator walks among them, I don't know if I'd be safe though. I couldn't look him in the eye, pretending I deserved it, knowing who I am inside. And I know I couldn't climb. I know because I've tried. But what if he climbed instead? Threw a rope from the top and pulled me up to the edge. I know the man who did. That's why I make you wish it were true, so I can show you that it is. That's why I make you wish it were true, so I can show you that it is. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Why don't we just jump right in? This month's question is, can faith be smart? What we're trying to do is each time tackle a big question, a controversial question, really open it up. Have a section where there's some teaching, but then I'll open it up to discussion. And so we're going to start off just with, I want to share some thoughts on this. But one of the things we want to do is think about our thinking. And a major part of thinking is asking questions. So whenever we deal with one of these questions, like can faith be smart, we have to question the question. And what that does is help to clarify it. It helps you to deal with it really in depth and deal with the issues that it brings out. So that's the first thing that we need to do is break down the question. And so one of the things we need to think about is what assumptions are in this question? What are the things that this question is assuming when it's being asked? And so, yeah, go ahead. You have a thought?
Oh, no, I thought you were asking a question to answer.
Well, okay. What assumptions do you think might be in this question?
The first assumption that comes to my mind is that by asking it, can faith be smart, you're assuming that a person knows what faith is. Does that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like when I'm trying to address it, I'm thinking, okay, then firstly, let me define faith within my head so that I can understand, is it a smart thing or is it a not smart thing? Vice versa.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we've got what is the meaning of faith? And the other key word there, what is the meaning of smart? Yeah. Now, so that's the place I want to start. Let's start with smart. What would smart mean? When someone says, can faith be smart, what would they mean by smart? What would be another way to put that? How could you open that up a little bit and try and define that?
Say intellectual, the first.
So intellectual?
Yeah, intellectual.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah? Anything else? They might be quite similar words, but...
Yeah, intellectual. I think of tactical. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, like tactical.
Okay.
Be tactical, like... When I think of something smart, I'm thinking of it as a logical... I'm a logical thinker. Everything's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It has a sequential order. So
Sure.
I'm thinking about smart, like, okay, it's logical and like I'm making a smart and tactical decision because it's for the best or something like that.
Okay. So that's ideas of like, is it practical? Is it
Yeah.
wise?
Yeah.
Is it logical is another word you use?
Yeah.
Intellectual, you might say reasonable. Is it reliable? Is it trustworthy? And those are all kind of ideas that are wrapped up in that word, smart. Now, what about what kinds of things? We're talking just generally. What kinds of things do you think would people group under that heading of smart? What kinds of knowledge or what kinds of things would someone say are smart or reasonable or intellectual or logical?
That people like historians and scientists.
Okay.
Kind of scholars.
Okay, so those are, what is their knowledge based on? If you got a couple different categories of different areas of learning there, what would make what they say smart?
It's based on fact.
So smart was something based on fact. Okay, yeah?
Something that's based on fact or evidence,
Uh-huh.
something that can be proven.
Absolutely, okay. Something that's able to be proven, something that's based on fact or evidence. Anything else to add on that?
Yeah, just to add upon that, fact, proven, evidence, but then also opinion. Like when you look at some of the academics, just opinion basically, like theories. There's a lot of academic material that are just loosely based upon theories. People in the past have gotten some material like wrong just through their theory and their own general understanding. And at the same time, obviously, it's like a double-sided coin. Some people have got it wrong, some people have got it right.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, and part of what's in what you're saying is we would consider something smart if someone smart has said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would take
someone
it.
credible. Yeah.
Someone credible, exactly. So that's another aspect of this. It's credible. How else would you come to know that something has evidence for it or is based on fact? For instance, what? In other words, how do you come to know that there's evidence for it? You've got history, which you look into what traces have been left behind. What did people write about it? What artifacts are there that we can find that prove this theory?
Yeah.
What else?
If you can present the same thing again, so like if it's something that can be repeated, also again if it's something that I can actually show you that you can see, or even if it's something that you can rationalize so it makes sense, so I'm able to catch it anyway.
Sure. Yeah, so something that can be shown through logic and something that's testable. And when you get into testability, you're talking about scientific method and history to a certain extent, but so through science. And so we've got all these different sources of knowledge. Did you have something else to add? Okay, cool. All right, so these are a lot of the ideas wrapped up in SMART. You can see there's a lot, even just such a simple word, there's a lot of ideas that we have associated to it that actually end up loading the question before you even start talking about it. Second key word, faith. Now, that's going to be the main section of what we're talking about, but the word faith, I asked this last time, but it's worth going back over again. What do people hear? What do people mean, or what do people hear when we use the term faith? What comes into a person's mind? And again, not just Christians, but any general person you might meet.
Firstly, from the unbeliever, faith, to me, when you hear faith in a community and faith just in a general worldly perspective, it's normally to do with a belief in some kind of higher being or something. This is your kind of faith in something.
Yeah.
Even Scientology, they believe in UFOs and stuff like that. That's their faith within that. It's a religion, basically. Your faith group is your like religious kind of group or whatever setting that you're in.
Yeah, so my faith might refer to, I'm a Muslim, this is my faith.
Exactly, yeah.
People of my faith.
Yeah, Sikhism, this is
Exactly,
my faith.
yeah, okay, so it could refer to a particular religious group,
Yeah.
a lot of times, yeah.
And then there's also now the meaning within Christianity. Faith within God, basically, the creator of the universe. To me, the way I understand faith is, I kind of see it as like a twofold thing. It starts, or I can't even say it starts, so it's partly based upon my kind of trust within God. However, it's within God as who he is, his characteristics, his power, his completeness. And I don't know, it's hard to describe, but the way how I do it is just in words and in pictures. I picture it, and I see myself as in, you know, the exercise where you're standing in front of somebody, and you fall back and that person catches you.
Mm-hmm.
I see that and I picture that in my mind, and I picture myself falling back and God catching me. However, it goes deeper than that, because faith within that scenario would be me knowing and being sure that God is going to catch me.
Mm-hmm.
His strength alone, he's not going to drop me. I'm not going to be too heavy for him. I'm not going to fall straight through his arms. I'm not going to be distracted at the time. He's going to catch me at that time, and the faith element would be within his power and his ability to catch me, and his basically ability to, his strength.
You're
just basically
fantastic, and that's you're already preempting a lot of the things that I'm going to want to talk about in terms of what do we mean as biblical faith, and just kind of in a more general sense. I can repeat what you said.
Okay. I can say that now. Now, what I was going to say is there's a faith now which I feel like people are more like, say 15, 20 years ago, it's about religious faith as what you said now. I believe that, I call it like almost like a self-God system now. I think we have so much faith in our own self as human beings, and that's a faith in itself now, where it's a faith that we don't proclaim as a faith, but man doesn't need God anymore. Where man used to have to pray to God, to have faith in a God that they can't see, that because they're scared of the next life, yeah, or they need to get food tomorrow. They have to pray because they don't even know what the weather's like tomorrow, or next year or so on. Or if we run out of food here, where we get food from? You know what I mean? So you have to have an element of faith. It's something unseen. You could say, you know, but now we have faith in ourselves. Faith that we can fulfill our desires, that everything's about ourselves. And this is not a unsaved theology thing. this is what's happening in the church as well. Is we have so much faith in our own strength.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So faith as well, for me as well, is faith in something which guarantees a result.
Okay. Yeah.
And
And what do you mean? Okay, what do you mean? How would you put that word faith? How would you express that differently to try and open up what do we mean when we say I have faith in myself? Even How else could you put that?
I don't need no one. You know,
Okay.
all I need is myself. You know, where we would say all I need is God in my life. All I need is myself.
So I believe in myself. I trust myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that the word faith can be substituted with hope in general.
Yeah.
Hope in someone or in something.
Mhm.
So for us as Christians, as believers, our hope is in Christ. Whereas in like outside of church and probably in the community, people who are unsaved maybe hope in something greater than what is, whatever that is. It's sort of, for them it's probably more broad. It's just hoping in something, having something to cling on to, basically.
Mhm. Sure. Okay, now let me try and steer you down a different way here. Excellent comments. Now, what if, imagine you step into like a university setting, and I don't know, say it's a biology class, and you say, I have faith in something. How would that be received? What would that be understood to mean, do you think? I'm not trying to be controversial at all. I'm just saying, what do people hear when we say that?
In that setting, I use a biology classroom as well. In that setting, we're in an environment where we test, we prove, we evidence everything.
Yeah.
What you are saying is you have a belief in something that's not evidenceable. The belief is, as soon as you use the word faith, particularly if it's attributed, as we've said, to religious organizations of any kind, you're believing in something that you cannot prove.
Yeah.
You know, and therefore the belief is that I can, not to go back to smart, but to go back to smart, I can use something smart to disprove this airy-fairy thing that you can't.
Yeah.
You know, so that would be how it would be received.
Absolutely. And I think when you look at the popular ideas that are out there, the ideas that are communicated often through popular media, through influential writers, especially in the area of science, but plenty of other areas, it's definitely wrapped up in that idea of faith. Take someone like Richard Dawkins, who's an atheist biologist, actually. He would define faith as belief in the absence of evidence, or even in the teeth of contrary evidence. In other words, it's a belief that you hold on to not only when there's no evidence, but it's a belief you hold on to even when all the evidence points against it. And so what I'm driving at here is, and the reason for the question, is that there's a popular idea that faith and smartness are opposed to one another. A person of faith can't at the same time really be very intelligent. There's a popular notion that's out there that would probably go like that. But this is what I want to ask. What is faith really? And is it opposed to reason? And here's where I'm going to do a little bit more talking, and then we'll get back to some discussion. But again, all right, why this question? Why are we asking this question? Well, a lot of people in our society would see faith as inconsistent with being a modern, intelligent person. And the idea is that the way that we understand the world, the way that we see the world now, is based on knowledge. It's based on knowledge that we get through reason and that we get through science. Whereas faith is something that's based simply on belief, and it doesn't deal with things that you can know. And so I think in the most positive, you might get that faith is a personal opinion that doesn't really have any basis apart from what you feel. And so what that leads to is, if you are in an academic setting or professional setting and you reveal that you're a Christian, that can open you up to a lot of ridicule. Or at least the feeling that you hold some pretty outdated beliefs. And one question for you guys: have you ever, directly or indirectly, been made to feel stupid for believing in God or for being a Christian? Can you say that you've ever felt that way? Maybe not directly, but maybe even through, as something as simple as watching TV. How many Christian characters are there simply to be ridiculed? Take, Ned Flanders or any, But it's more than that. In most areas of life, Christianity isn't even mentioned. It's just not seen as relevant to any of the important things that are going on. It's just not on the table as an option for people. It's not something that they would take seriously as an idea. Because today we know more about science, we know about the inner workings of the universe, and we have a lot more information, you might say. But from another perspective, even though we have all this new information, an overload of information, we're still asking the same questions that human beings have been asking since the beginning of our history. Science, for all its amazing achievements, for how wonderful it is, it doesn't answer the kinds of questions that we even start asking as little kids. What's the point of life? What am I here for? How am I supposed to live my life? Why do bad things happen to good people? Science simply doesn't deal with those kind of questions. So, what actually is faith? And does it have a role in modern life? So I've already said, there's this general sense in the world that faith is something that religious people have, which it keeps them nice and cozy, it comforts them, but there's not really any foundation for it. Oh, that's nice that you believe that. Whereas non-religious people don't have faith. They only believe things that are based on science and reason. The first thing I would have to say about that is, it's not hard to see that actually life as we know it is impossible to live without faith. Almost all the things that we know and base our lives on are founded in faith on someone or something. Things which cannot be proven absolutely, but which we know beyond reasonable doubt, and we live our lives by it. So the reality is that everyone uses faith in some way every single day. You can't live life without it. Things that are based on faith might not be provable in the strict sense of that word, but they do make sense, and they are perfect, and they can be perfectly reasonable. Now, the reason I'm saying that is when you look at the reality, the truth is that very, very few things in life can be proven absolutely. In fact, there's only two categories of things that we can confidently say you can know absolutely, that you can prove absolutely. And what that is limited to maths, pure mathematics, and pure logic. What do I mean by that? Mathematics. You can know absolutely that 2 + 2 = 4. You can know absolutely from logic that there's no such thing as a married bachelor. Because it's inherent in the words themselves that 2 + 2 makes 4. If 2 + 2 = 5, then you've changed the meaning of 2. So you can't get any other answer than that without changing the meaning of the words. And the same thing with bachelor. A bachelor means an unmarried man. So you can't have a married bachelor. You can know that absolutely. You will not find a married bachelor anywhere in the world. Or any world. But that's about it. Those two kinds of things, that's what you can know absolutely, or that's what you can prove absolutely. And even though those things are incredibly important, they're foundational, you'll probably agree that most of the things that really matter in life fall outside of those two narrow categories. What about the things that really matter? Like, does my mother love me, for instance? That's something that you can know, but you can't prove absolutely. What about, do I exist? Not even something as simple as, do I exist, or does the universe exist even, can be proven absolutely. Do I exist? Well, prove it to me absolutely. Well, you might be a brain in a vat in the Matrix. Right? Now, I'm not saying that it's unreasonable to believe that you exist. I'm just saying it falls outside of what you can prove absolutely. Most things that matter can't be proven absolutely. Instead, the way you go about it is proving it like you would prove something in a courtroom. In a courtroom, what you do, we all know this, you give evidence that doesn't lead to an absolute proof, but it leads to what? A reasonable conclusion, right? Something beyond reasonable doubt. Beyond reasonable doubt can be known, but not proven absolutely. And that's the way we come to know most things that we know. Take the statement, my wife loves me. That is not something that I can prove to you absolutely, but it's something that I could offer you evidence to prove it. And so, Christian faith, it's not something, and we can freely admit this, it's not something that can be proven absolutely, but it is something that is based on evidence. It is something that, on the basis of evidence, leads us towards a reasonable conclusion. And based on that evidence, we have trust, we have confidence, or you might say we have faith. So, the kind of faith that the Bible asks us to have basically means trust, which is based on reasonable evidence. It's more like, someone like Richard Dawkins might say, when a Christian says they have faith, it's basically the same as saying, I believe in Santa Claus, or I believe in fairies at the bottom of the garden. Something that you could never have proof for. When the reality is, when the Bible asks you to have faith, it's more like saying, I have faith in my friend. Does that mean that you believe your friend exists? No. It means, well, okay, you have to believe that they exist. It means much more than that. It means that you not only believe they exist, but that you trust them. And you trust them, why? Because you know them. They have a track record. And you know that you can rely on them. When the Bible asks us to trust God, to have faith in Him, it's based on what He's done and who He is. And it's completely reasonable because we can trust His character. And so, it's absolutely unfair and unreasonable for someone to demand of a Christian that you must have absolute proof to believe. Even science doesn't deal with absolute proof. We've just seen that. Pure logic, pure mathematics. Even science doesn't deal with absolute proof. The laws of nature can't be proven absolutely. That doesn't mean that we can't know them. The laws of nature, they're just descriptions of what usually happen, of what usually happens under certain circumstances. Right? It's based on what we've observed in the past, but that in no way proves that that will happen in the future. And there's an illustration of this about a turkey. A turkey, he's a free-range turkey. He loves life. He gets fed every day, and he goes out to the field and he runs around and do whatever turkeys do. 364 days out of the year. He sleeps, he wakes up, he's fed, he goes out into the field. So he has a reasonable expectation that tomorrow he's going to wake up, be fed, and run around the field. Except when tomorrow's Christmas Day. And the way that we know the laws of nature is kind of like that. We have observed all through history that things work in a certain way. that when you drop an apple from a tree, it falls to the ground at a certain speed. It's based on observation. But that in no way proves absolutely what will happen tomorrow. And so that's the kind of knowledge that science gives us. It's solid, it's based on observation, but it's not absolute proof. And it's not that science fails, it's just that that's not what it's designed to do. That's not the kind of thing that it can deal with. And I think the mistake that's often made is trying to make science answer questions that it could never possibly answer, because it doesn't deal with that. So, faith is not irrational. It's actually the normal way that we live our lives and go about the things that really matter to us. And when someone or something is proven that they're reliable, it's rational to believe them and trust them when they promise something. And that's why I looked up faith in the dictionary to see what it might say, and then the dictionary that I looked it up in was quite accurate. The first definition was complete trust or confidence in someone or something. The second definition was a strong belief in God or the doctrines of religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. So, just to summarize what I've said so far, Christian faith is not faith in an idea that can be proven absolutely. We can admit that. But those kinds of things, the things that you can prove absolutely, end up being important but kind of useless in day-to-day life. 1 + 1 = 2 is always true, and you can know that absolutely. But did 1 + 1 ever put 2 pounds in your pocket? They're truths that can't do things. They don't have power in the real world. So faith isn't just believing in the absence of evidence or against the evidence. It's believing in a person. This is what we mean by biblical faith. It's believing in a person and trusting that they're going to come through on their promises. And it's built on knowledge and relationship of that person and backed up by what we know of their character. So the question of can faith be smart, it's not whether faith can be smart, it's whether it's smart to have faith in that particular thing or person. So, this is kind of my encouragement and challenge. Did you know that when you enter the church, you don't have to check your brain in at the cloakroom? I think you guys know that. There's a lot of people that act as if you do. Another question, how much of your life, your body, your personality, your humanity, how much of that is God interested in? Yeah, well, okay, if you're a Christian, how much of your life and your being is God interested in? 10%? 50%? 90%? All of it. And so, that's why the greatest commandment is love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so, part of what this is about is cultivating a love for God in our minds. And I think it's something, because it's in that commandment, which is central to all Christians, it's something that is a call to all Christians. Not just the people that love to read and go to school. It's everybody. The mind that God's given to you, use all of it for Him. Okay. You with me so far? Okay. So, Christianity isn't just based on having faith in faith. It's not just faith just because. It's faith which says, believe because of this. The disciples didn't just order people to believe just because. They preached that certain things had happened, that a person had come called Jesus, and he died on the cross and been resurrected from the dead. And that because of that, we could have confidence, we could have hope, and we could have faith in who he said he was and the promises he made. And so we're talking about real events, we're talking about real history, not just things that we accept just because. Because Christianity claims to line up with actual reality, actual events, what it means is we can have a conversation about what reasons do you have to believe. Because it makes a claim to say, this is something you should believe because of this evidence. Yeah? So what we're dealing with is, what clues do we have? If we can't have absolute proof, we're dealing with stuff that leads to a reasonable conclusion, like in a courtroom. What clues do we have that having faith in this person is a smart thing? I think I'm going to pause here because I've been talking for quite a while. Maybe I can just open that up to you. What evidence is there? Well, first of all, you can come back on anything I've said. You can challenge anything I've said. If you didn't like something I said, you can ask if I need to clarify something. And then maybe I'll throw a question out there for discussion. So, any questions about all the stuff that I've just shared? No?
When you was asking, not really a question, when you're saying when you were asking what proof do we have? I mean, yeah, what proof do you have? Do you mean proof in what we have in him? Or
Say it again.
when you were asking about what proof do we have, or not proof, what evidence do we have for our faith that we present? Do you mean like for why we believe?
I mean, you could answer like that. I kind of meant generally, what evidence is there for belief?
You could even use some of the stuff that they use to counteract it. Like, okay, I'm trained to be a nurse, so I'm very heavily exposed to medicine a lot. Now, if you look at the body, the human body, the way how we're built, it's so complex. There has to be a creator. So again, they like to throw science out, but science itself proves God exists.
Okay.
Because what other logical explanation is there for the things that we see, and even our own bodies? So
Sure.
I'd use that.
Yeah. That's valid, and one of the, I don't think there's one kind of like, there's one kind of knockdown argument. I think there's a series of clues.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is the clue of design. That when we look around at the universe that we're in, it's perfectly, or it has the appearance of being perfectly designed to support life, to support human life. And that's a very good point. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, well, just our faith, what it can be evidenced of, basically. I was just trying to think in my head about that Hebrew scripture about faith.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it evidence of the substance of the, I can't even remember it.
Substance of things hoped for.
Something, yeah, that's it. Substance of things hoped for.
Evidence of things unseen.
Unseen, yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to turn to it on my phone and get it, but I couldn't get it in time. But we all know that Hebrew scripture, and basically, to me, faith, or my faith personally, is evidence upon God's characteristics. like his attributes. I've kind of just in generally through living my life how I've lived it, I've unconsciously and maybe at times consciously through disobedience tested to some of these attributes and these characteristics, i.e. God's love, his goodness, his mercy, kindness and his strength and his power. Even within myself and personal prophecy, there's been things that I've, like visions, evidence like that. And I really feel and think and believe within myself that faith, when Paul says, oh, you're going to move from faith to faith and this and that, when your faith is increasing and whatnot, faith in its kind of entirety comes from God and his power and his attributes and his characteristics and whatnot. But I believe there's going to be more, if it makes sense to say, more kind of faith being given to God in an individual way, like more faith through evidence, like through things like when Christ turned water into wine and healing and this and that, when Peter tried to walk on the water, he was walking at first and then he sunk, and then Christ said, oh, ye have little faith, At first his faith was there, but then he looked at the wall, he also heard the waves and thinking, whoa, I'm walking on water, I shouldn't be walking on water, boom, dropped, And then Christ is like, what do you mean, why are you doubting me, you have little faith, kind of thing. And it's kind of like that, that's what keeps me, like my faith, it's not kind of blind, like I know it's like an assurance. I can say to this mountain to move, and it's not my words that are making the mountain move, it's God, it's the power behind it. It's like, I know that once I say to this mountain to move, that God has the ability to lift this mountain up and pull it over there and move it, basically. So in whatever area of my life, it's that faith within what God is able to do, that kind of assurance, that hope. Even when we look at the old school definition of hope, I think it means assurance and things like that.
And the verse you were referencing there was Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, we're dropping the can now. Right, so obviously when I say to my friends, oh, what do you do? What religion? I say, no, I'm not part of religion, I'm part of faith. So, is this really truly faith? Because I don't really see, from what you're saying about faith, is Christianity a faith? No, true Christianity a faith, I don't say, because I don't be part of a faith, because in one sense you mentioned about people leave their intelligence outside, and they get mixed up between culture and spiritualism and so on. That's still to leave. Just everyone just goes crazy. They go into this sixth sense mode and saying, I spend my rest of my life sensing things out, and I sense that this person's in. You spend all this time trying to close our eyes and just work out what's going in the spiritual realm, which is great and fantastic. But there's no almost intellectual process in terms of proving that the Bible is a real book. So, is Christianity, the question I'm posing now really is it right to say that Christianity, a true Christianity, is a faith? It isn't really.
Okay, so let me ask you then, how are you using that word faith there?
Because the faith way it's described, in the definition of faith, there's some flaws in it.
Whose definition now?
Oh, the dictionaries. For me, are we going to make up a version of faith, or are we going to stick to the dictionary version of faith?
We don't go with the dictionary version.
So that means it's not faith then? What are we serving? If you know,
let me read that dictionary definition again. Okay, this is the Random House Dictionary. Complete trust or confidence in something or someone. That's the first definition.
What's the second one?
The second definition is strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof.
But there's proof that the Bible, for me, Christianity is real. There is proof.
And I'm with you, and that's what I'm arguing. This is what I'm arguing.
That's why I'm saying, well, I'm not part of that. You know that part.
Well,
there's two parts to this.
So what we say, okay.
Definition do we attribute our belief to?
Okay, so you wouldn't say the two of them.
I wouldn't say I believe in something that has no proof.
Cool, go. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like with the dictionary definitions, obviously, it's a man-made definition. Like there's two. There's one that's kind of supporting what we're saying, and there's one that's kind of like going against what we're saying. When you look at like a lot of the English language, it's kind of like weak in its breakdown. Like when you say love to somebody, you can define love in so many different aspects. Whereas when you got the Hebrew word of love, you got eros, you got agape, you got phileo, something like friendship love, and different kind of elements of the one word love that we just have. It's that one word, and we just give it a broad, massive definition. Like there's lots of collective meanings under it. So again, the same thing with faith. Like one dictionary can say faith is etc., etc., etc. Another dictionary might say it's this and that. Another dictionary might say it's both of them. You know, it's got number one, it means this. Number two means that. Number three means that.
now, on that exact point, it's interesting. The New Testament. You want to talk about the word that we translate into faith in our English Bibles from the original Hebrew and Greek. The Old Testament, faith is not a noun, it's always a verb. There's no noun for faith in the Old Testament. And so what's communicated there is a complete reliance on a person. And the same in the New Testament, there's two words that would be translated faith. You've got nomizo, my pronunciation is probably bad, but nomizo and pistis, okay? Pistis, okay? Doesn't help. One of them, they kind of match up to these two definitions. And the one that is consistently used in the New Testament is nomizo, which is that first one, complete trust or reliance in a person. And so what I'm arguing for is that you have to define what you mean by faith. If you're using it as a noun, I'm of faith, then that means I'm part of a particular group. But is Christianity a faith? I would say absolutely. In its most essential essence of what it is faith. By which I mean it is complete reliance and trust in, not an idea or a theory, but a person. The whole idea of Christianity is what's it rooted in? It's not just rooted in believing certain facts or just having certain feelings or just living a certain way. Christianity is nothing if it's not rooted in the person of Jesus. And the way to illustrate that is, take any other faith, take any other religious system, and you could take the founder away, and the system still stands. You could, it would be controversial to say it, but in Islam, you theoretically could have a different prophet deliver the same message, and it would still stand, because what's important is the message, not necessarily the person who delivers it. In traditional Judaism, you could, if Moses would have chickened out and Aaron ended up being the prophet, the law would still be the same. But if you take Christ out of Christianity, you're not left with anything. Okay, you're left with a bunch of nice sayings and a good set of rules and a lot of empty buildings. But take 1 Corinthians 15. The Apostle Paul is talking about this. He says, he's talking about the resurrection. He's saying, some of you are saying there's no resurrection. Well, if there's no resurrection, that means Jesus is still in the grave. He's still dead. And if that's true, you are still dead in your sins. And there's no hope. And actually, if that's true, if there's no resurrection, then you are the most pitiful people on earth. Because you're believing in something that is worthless. And so without Christ, there's no Christianity. And so my faith does not just mean believing certain facts that God exists, but it means I trust Him with my whole being as a person. So yes, I would say absolutely Christianity is a faith in the way that we're in the biblical way that we're defining here. Yeah.
But then would you completely write off the second part of the second definition? Because, and why I say that is because there are some things that we cannot prove. There are some aspects of our faith that we cannot prove. There are some aspects of, like, some things that we believe that I cannot set out for you that will make sense to you. When I say sense, like, that definition of smart, like, does it make sense? Can I put that together in my head? Yeah, is that logical? There are some things that we can't prove, so I personally wouldn't completely write off the second. Mm-hmm. I'd say the main focus in terms of, as like looking at Christianity as a whole being a faith, definitely I'd go for part one. Yeah. But then I wouldn't completely write off part two. Sure. Because I think that there are areas of it that apply to us still. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that before I share my thoughts? Run it away
Yeah, I'll say that to add to that. I can't remember which part, but when you're talking about faith, and I was saying that faith without works is dead. Yeah. So that if you have the true faith and you have the works, then that is your proof to in the world that's looking at you. You're going to, so then,
what does it prove though? It does prove something. I'm with you, but what would those works prove?
Would prove our faith, our trust in that.
Yeah, it proves that you have faith. Mm-hmm. Because if you just say, yeah, I believe I have faith, but you don't actually live it out, then you're contradicting your words by the way that you live. I think that's kind of what that verse is getting at. So, absolutely. Yeah. But the question, I think, Roxanne? Yeah. That Roxanne was bringing up was, are there things beyond that which still fit into that second definition of things that we believe, that we apprehend spiritually, is the way it puts it here, without proof? And Indy has something to share?
Yeah, I think when dealing with Christianity, I loosely call myself a Christian because of the broad umbrella that sits incorporated under. Like, you've got a whole heap of politics and isms, schisms, and issues and whatever within Christianity, and that's just fact. Roman Catholicism, they're still Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever, and I understand it now within myself, but obviously somebody without the knowledge and the understanding wouldn't be able to come to a clear consensus like that. So within a certain particular set, or within a setting of a Christianity within a religion, Christianity without Christ, because a lot of these religions that come under the umbrella of Christianity, Christ is kind of taken out of it. Christ isn't like the pinnacle or the center, within my opinion. And so within that, you could sort of look at it like, okay, then this is like, it's loosely based upon us believing in some kind of things that such and such said, which we should follow to get to this destination or whatever. I don't want to name and shame like different other branches of Christianity. I just mean like religion in general, like religion meaning like rules and tradition and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the problem for me is, okay, it is complex, it is difficult to narrow down and define what is Christian, what's not on some issues. I think one place where we really can draw a line is when you take Christ out, then you're removing the whole basis of the good news. Because the good news is not the words, it's the life that's in him that is then given to you. And so if I remove him, there's no life anymore. And that's what 1 Corinthians 15 is about. And I just wanted to, did you have something on her question, or you did? Okay, because I don't want to let that one slip.
Yeah, I don't want to try to answer the question, but obviously, in terms of, we said, kind of going back a little bit from where we are, in terms of the kind of idea of not everything can be proven, not everything can be, some things can't even be proven beyond reasonable doubt. I can't prove that a man has spent 3 days inside the belly of any kind of fish. I cannot prove it. It's for fact. I can't prove it to you. I can't prove that the Red Sea was split in two and that Pharaoh and his armies were drowned in the Red Sea. I can't prove it. But I think it's dangerous when we kind of think that we have to. I think the danger was when we think we have to bring it back to that place of logic. We've identified that logic doesn't actually bring substance. Yes, I can say I'd have to say to someone, okay, yes, I cannot logically bring that to a logical conclusion. I cannot logically say to you, here, see the Red Sea split. Yeah? However, when we bring it back to what we're talking about, faith, my faith is in the person of Jesus Christ. My faith is in the work that Jesus has done. My faith is in the word that has been led for me and the promises being fulfilled. However, faith is still a thing that requires belief. And belief can only be belief. We don't hope for what we see. As Paul says, we can't hope for it if we see it. So there's an element of belief, and I think, I suppose today, in terms of when we talk about people asking us questions like, well, prove that, then prove that happened. I can't prove that happened, but we have to remember, like Ian has said, everybody lives by faith. So we shouldn't be intimidated by the things we can't prove, because the same person who's asking me that question stands on the belief of things that they can't prove.
Yeah.
So we have to identify what is faith and where is.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, that often the burden of proof is put on the person that supposedly has faith. And I think we can take a step back and say, actually all of life, all the things that anyone cares about really are based on things that you need to accept by faith. That doesn't mean, of course it means you can't absolutely prove them, but very little things can be absolutely proven. It doesn't mean it's unreasonable. There's certain things that we can have that may not be able to be proven, but it's reasonable to believe. So, can you prove to me that love is better than hate? That democracy is better than, tyranny? That those things are not, no one could offer you an absolute proof of that. And yet, we believe them deep down and we live by them because we inherently know that they're true and they're reasonable to believe. So, absolutely. And I did want to say something back to your point. Or did you want to expand it? Okay.
I was going to say, even if I was to sort of take a shot at answering myself, I would say, I believe that the definition 2 goes back full circle to 1.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that we cannot prove, although we cannot give, like a definitive answer for A, B, and C, what we believe is based on who we have faith in, who we believe in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, oh my gosh, I was trying to remember the scripture. I think it's somewhere in Hebrews 6 where it basically speaks about God saying, because there was nothing and no one greater than himself, he had to swear by himself. So it's like, I believe you because I believe that this happened or you did this because I believe in who you are. So it's what I can't, though I can't prove it, I believe in you, so I take that as truth. So
Yeah.
that I'd sort of look at it like, that's why I think that they still work together,
Yeah.
the two. So that's why I'm sort of like, I wouldn't completely lock off both the second part of the definition, because yes, there are things that we can't prove, but again, you basically were saying it, that's why I was like, yeah, it just goes back to part one. It's based on some of the things that we believe that we can't prove. It's just based on who we believe in. I have faith in him, so some of those things can't prove it, but I believe him, so I believe that to be true.
Yeah.
That makes
And that's exactly the way I was going to respond as well, in saying that, yeah, of course, absolutely, there's things that we can't offer conclusive evidence about, but then it goes back to one. It's I still can believe that reasonably because I have other reasons to believe that, and the thing is, I trust in this person. And because I can trust him, I can reasonably believe that that's true too. And so I would bring it back, rather than starting with, Jonah in the belly of the fish, rather than starting with Pharaoh's, chariots in the sea, which you could verify if you found some chariots in the Red Sea. So that's even possible, but it's so ancient history that I wouldn't start there. I would start with, who is Jesus? He's the foundation. He's the central pillar. Who is he? Can I trust him? And if I can trust him, well, maybe I can trust some of these other things too that don't get past my mind.
Right.
Roger, you had something to say?
Yeah, sorry. Something Josh said really clicked for me, because as we was talking, I know we're focusing on faith, but we have to, for me, I'm looking at smart, and I'm saying, okay, we're going faith. Well, where does the smart come into it?
Mm.
And Josh raised the point of something he said. It got me, clicked with me. In terms of, you mentioned earlier about everyone relies on faith, yeah. And you have to realize that somebody like Steve Hawkins will say to us that actually you guys are in blind faith, but actually a lot of these, all these things like dark matter and all these things that they try and strive for is even more faith than what we have. If we actually check it out, there's more facts about. Unfortunately, I spend too much life watching History Channel, Military Channel, yeah, and then and whatever. And most of the stories in the Bible, that's literal to them. That's like, yeah, that happened. Oh, there's this King David guy, he wiped out them. These are real events that happened. Oh yeah, by the way, because they said. So the Bible is a real factual book, but actually these events actually happened. So this guy's gonna tell me that he's focusing on solar system and dark matter. Yeah, things that are so off the radar. Actually, mate, you are actually operating in blind faith, and I'm actually operating in something that's more factual than you. But too often we actually don't realize how many facts that are in the Bible that actually did happen. If you actually realize that there was a guy called Jesus that walked on this earth, because there's other books that back that up. There's other books that back up all the things that's happening in the Old Testament, or a lot of things that happen in the Old Testament. So, what book are you backing up? They'll sooner believe the Roman Zeuses and gods and whatever there, yeah, that has no facts, than there are in the God that we talk about. So something that Josh said, it's like, you know what? They're actually operating so much faith that their faith, a man's faith at his heart, will carry a beating for the next day. Well, we all know that. Listen, his heart is gonna stop. It can fail.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's for me, their faith is actually a lot more than what we think blind faith is. That's just me for.
And yeah, I would agree to an extent.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily say that either is blind faith, because both are coming from the perspective of given what I see, given what I observe, what's the best explanation? And Stephen Hawking dealing with things like dark matter and black holes and astronomy. there's faith involved, but it's not so much. There's even maybe blind faith involved, but it's in the principles of why do you think, on what basis do you think that you can trust your observations? Now, your observations might prove a certain theory. You know, every time the apple falls, it falls to the ground at this speed and in this way. Well, okay, I have a theory to describe that, gravity. Yeah? That's not blind faith because I have a basis for it. But what's my basis? What's my foundation for believing that what I see matches up with reality? And so there is faith operating there, but it's like it's at a really deep level that's not often talked about. And one of the things, I won't go any. Does that make sense? I won't go any. There's a lot more you could go into that. C.S. Lewis was really interested in that question, and so I guess I am going more into it. just quick. You know, his whole, one of his big ideas. You know, C.S. Lewis, author of Narnia books and everything, but he was a very influential thinker on the topic of Christianity and is it reasonable? And his question was, if evolution is the only explanation for the existence of life, that also means it's the explanation for the development of intelligence. If evolution is the only process, okay, in other words, things have developed in a way that was beneficial to the species, right? So that we've developed and we've carried certain characteristics because it helped us survive, right? If the only explanation is evolution, then that means your reason, your intelligence was just another characteristic that helped you survive. In other words, if that's true, how could you possibly know that what you see, what you observe, what you think in your mind is actually true? Or is it just something that helps you survive? Does that make sense? Yeah? In other words, if your only explanation is we are here because of evolution, that means your intelligence also comes from evolution, which means you can't have a foundation to say that matches up with reality. You can only say it matches up with what helps me survive. And so that was his question. That's a faith statement that is underneath that view of science. And he would say I would say is a problem. That can't be your stopping point, in other words. Did you
I think we'll stop right there.
It's okay, all right. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not directly on topic, sort of like a little diversion. But don't you think, well, sometimes I think that the fact that some people are so fixed on disproving God and the existence of God is because we live in a culture where we don't want to be governed by anything or anyone. So does that not then play a part in the way we then reason about life, the purpose of life? Because if I don't want to be governed, I'm not going to want to believe this, so I will find something else to believe or some reason to discredit this because I don't want to follow that. Because I find sometimes, a lot of the time, I've been out and probably like speaking to people, witnessing to people, or being around when others are doing it, and just listening to the responses. It's a rebellion from being governed, from being led. I want to live my way. I want to determine what right and wrong is. I don't want to be told. So then that will have, if that's the sort of base that I'm starting from, that's where I'm going to build my theory for life from.
Sure.
So then it sort of makes sense why they don't want to take on board like faith in what, faith in who, faith for what, because I don't want to be governed.
Yeah.
So you can't be told, really.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of like thinking, does that then not play a part in whether you believe or not? Your willingness to be led by something or someone?
I think it does. And I think Indy has something to say about that.
No, I just took on what you're saying, very valid and very true. Like, so our faith, I think it all boils down to our faith within the person of God the Father, like His supremacy. He was there before all of us, everything that we can see. In Him, like kind of all things were made through Him or whatever, and it's once I see that, like God is outside of all of this, we're like kind of within all of this, within. It's hard to describe what, like I'm picturing it, but I'm trying to describe a picture in my head. Once I understand that, and then I understand, alright, then God created the earth and the heavens, He created all of this, created man, and mankind sinned, you know. God's wrath is now upon man, the separation, the spiritual death. Adam was cursed, you know, cursed to work the land and whatnot. And I picture that today as in, I'm waking up at like 8 o'clock in the morning to go to work and coming back home at 6 o'clock. I'm working the land for my money, you know, and even though it's why I'm working and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm blessed because I got a job, I'm blessed because I got this, I got that, but I'm working just to, you know, I'm labouring the ground just to make a living kind of thing. So, you know, mankind's got this curse upon us, we've got this separation from God, and it's this inherent need for a saviour, Christ. It's when God the Father sent down Christ. Obviously, Christ fulfilled that need, that void, took on God's wrath, our forgiveness, you know, His death, His resurrection, proving He was sinless and who He said He was.
Yeah.
And it's faith within that, faith within the power and the supremacy of God the Father, and also the act of what He achieved and accomplished through the person of Christ. It's just that faith, like anything else I can't describe or I can't comprehend. Like I have no reason for that or disbelief, I can't prove that, I can't prove that. But I know that it's like my mum, for example. My mum always used to give me some food that, you know, didn't look nice. And she used to try and make me taste different things as I'm growing up, and she still does it now. And I used to refuse it. I used to go, no, I don't want that, it looks nasty. And then my mum used to always look at me and say, do you think I'm going to give you something to harm you? You know, I'm not going to give you nothing that's not going to be beneficial for you. I'm not going to trick you into eating something and it's going to like make you choke to death or something like that. And she used to give me that look like, you know, and I knew she was, I had that belief that, you know, I know, okay, then I know this is, okay, and I ate it. I might have not liked some of the stuff, you know, just some of the stuff that I have liked, you know, but it's just that knowledge and that trust that I know my mum's not gonna, you know, give me something that's gonna be against.
Yeah.
But you were
absolutely.
open to it, though. You were willing to try
And
what she presented to you.
this is the thing now with faith in my aspects and how I see it. When I'm looking at the Bible, I'm trying to study like witnessing and what's genuine salvation kind of thing, this whole salvation process. I know the gospel is the power of God for the salvation of those who believe. And it's opening up that, and I'm looking at John, and I'm seeing where it says, okay then, for those who believed in Christ, and it also talks about receiving Christ as well. Talks about believing and receiving, and there's this like a two-part aspect of it. There's you see people where they believed in Christ, and then Paul went back to them, and he said, "Have you received the Holy Spirit?" kind of thing. And it's sort of like to try and understand. I'm still trying to understand it within myself. I've got it, but it's trying to. I see things in pictures, and it's trying to describe the picture that's in my head.
Yeah.
Or it's just the two words of like believing and receiving. And to sum it or summarize, a lot of people believe and have faith within something based upon their belief, but they haven't necessarily received like what it is they're believing in.
Yeah.
Like, I believe in Christ, and for a long time I was very religious because I didn't receive all the things that I didn't receive Christ in his person, in his characteristics. I believed in Christ, like, he died on the cross, he did this, he did that, he accomplished this and he did, okay, I believe that, cool. But I didn't receive what it meant for me within my own life. I was still holding on to kind of like my own issues, my own sin, my own problems. My hands were full. I couldn't receive nothing from God because I hadn't repented, and you know, I wasn't open to receive Christ. I wasn't open to receive his person. Like, for you guys to receive me, you'll receive me in who I am. You'll understand who I am. I like wolves. That's just one of the things about me. So if somebody knows that I like wolves and they go and persecute wolves or kill wolves and come up to me in a wolf coat, you know, they can't really be receiving me well if they're doing these things that I'm against, kind of thing.
Sure.
So they might believe in me and know about me, but then they're not receiving me because they're doing the things that they know that I'm standing against, kind of thing. And it's sort of that. I know I went around in a big way to try.
I think you're making a good point that in the essence of faith, because the Bible talks about we're saved by faith through grace, and there's two aspects of that faith. There's the believing and there's the receiving, like you just said. And if you picture, for instance, a bottle of, okay, say you've got a virus, you've got some sort of deadly disease, and someone presents you with the medicine, say it's penicillin. All right? There's three things that got to happen for that to save you. You got to admit you're sick first. You have to know that you're sick. Then you have to believe that the penicillin is not only there, but can do what it says. All right? And that's where most people stop. Yeah, I believe. God's there. He's God. He's almighty. He's there. But it's got to go more than that. You have to actually take the medicine for it to have any effect. And it would be a big topic to get into. What does it mean to receive it? What does it mean to take it? But you're absolutely right in saying an element that shows that you've received it is that it's reflected in your life, and that's essential. And I wanted to get back to your comment, which was now kind of fading into memory.
What about people?
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. I think that's a very valid point. In that, don't people try and argue against because actually they don't want it. I think that's something that comes through pretty clearly in the Bible, that humanity, in its natural state, wants nothing to do with God, and will do anything to get rid of God. That's what you see. That's what you see in the garden, is man trying to set himself up as an alternative God. The lie was, you can be like God. And then you see it in the Tower of Babel. Man trying to do his own thing and become, reach to the height of God on his own. And so, I think that's a deep thing that works in our nature. And that's why, for anyone to come to faith, there's grace at work, because in ourselves, it's not something that we naturally want. No one wants to submit to anybody else naturally. We want to be our own God, basically. And so that's kind of like, it's the root of the whole problem of the human race, is that very thing. But even, I think, I wish I had the quotes with me, but there's some atheist writers that have, in moments of honesty, kind of admitted that fact. That actually, beyond all these arguments, beyond all this evidence that I'm presenting, actually, I don't want it to be true. Because what that means is I need to submit my life to a certain standard.
Exactly.
And so that's a really good point. And did you have something to add? No? Okay. All right. We've only got like 10 more minutes, but this is great. It's just kind of flowed right into conversation, so that's perfect. And I wanted to mention just a few things about. Okay, so we've defined faith, and we've said that faith may not necessarily be smart or reasonable, but it certainly can be. And the question is, what is your reason for that faith? So let me ask the question, is it even worth talking about this stuff? Is it, or not? What do you think?
Is it worth having this discussion?
Yeah, is it worth talking about the question, what's your reason for believing? Or should it just be fine to just say, well, I just believe, that's it?
Okay. I think there's certainly value in knowing how to answer it, simply because, and like I said, in terms of the thing of, Jonah or Pharaoh, sometimes you're trying to talk to people about the crux of the faith, and it's like they don't want to hear it, because it's like, you tell me first about the guy in the whale, and the army in the sea, and then I will talk to you about the crux of the faith. So sometimes, even though that's not where the heart of salvation lies, you have to at least understand how to address the questions that some people are going to pose.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's an easier option, as you say, to check your brain in at the cloakroom and say, oh, sorry, my brain's in the cloakroom. You have to wait, kind of thing, and say, well, I won't talk about that. But and it's like, well, if I say I am truly convinced of something, and then when questioned about it, I say, I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
I present to that person as not being wholly convinced, and you're supposed to be ready to give an answer for the hope that is within you. So I have to at least know, and that's why I'm saying these things are valuable, because I have to at least know how to address, number one, address things that are posed, but also as Christians, if we don't understand how to address them, we can, again, confuse what it is to address them. So we can think that me trying to address this is me trying to prove this. This is not me trying to prove it. It's, as you say, me trying to show you beyond reasonable doubt. To give an example, I'm young and I'm married. Sometimes people ask me, you married young? I don't even mention the fact that I'm a Christian. I don't mention the fact that I'm a Christian. I say, things that are actually true. I was around many people who are older, 40s, 50s, who've been married for 20 plus years. Those people are all Christians. But from becoming a Christian, I became around those people. And from there, I became inspired myself to, if the opportunity was presented, get married at this age.
Yeah.
So I say I had mentors who have been married for that length and that period of time. That's actually the reason, because there's some young Christians who don't have that, therefore they don't have the same inspiration.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's easy to naively attribute every good thing to, oh, I'm a Christian, and actually it's like, no, there's components to it. There's logical components to what's made what's happened happen.
Yeah.
But if someone doesn't learn to critically think like that, they will encounter people, and unfortunately for them, it can knock their faith, and it can also prevent someone else from having an opportunity to know this faith is just as reasonable as what you believe. And actually make that person leave with, actually, I've got logic here, I've got logic there. Which one outweighs the other?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important.
Yeah.
I am going to pass it right back to you, but you said something, I was just going to say the scripture that you mentioned, 1 Peter 3:15, but sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is within you, with meekness and fear. So my answer is yes, it makes perfect sense for us to discuss this, because for us to be prepared to give an answer, we need to know how to answer.
Sure.
Some of us don't, but sort of just go out there with anything. Any other man will make sure that he's ready to. If you're prepared today for Decipher, now we in the same way should be prepared to share our faith and give reason for it in the same way.
Sure.
And Yeah, so we should do it because the Bible says, you know, if
Yeah.
this is God breathed, then, you know, God
Yeah,
saying,
anybody
hey,
who asks
this
you.
is what you need to do.
I don't know if anybody's asked it before, but Roger's been waiting. Hold on. Let's.
It's just something you said. It's real important, and I think, like, you know, I've been saved since I was 13 years old and 38. Yeah, so getting younger. But the reality of the situation is that over the years we don't ask these questions. But in my work environment, we get tested every year. We get refresher courses. If you don't know how to do certain things, first aid, you know, how to deal with course, why you're here, certain things that are going on in the work environment, you know, you're at the job, you know what I mean? And you actually, even if they don't address it, then the work becomes total mayhem because everyone forgets what's going on in the basics and you forgot why you was here in the first place.
Yeah.
And what I've seen over the years is that we get caught up in routine because routine is easier than actually asking this question.
Sure.
If I dress the right way, I'm not just batting out if you wear your shirt and tie to church or whatever, that's not just the only focal point. But if I dress a certain way, if I come to church every time, religiously, whatever, and it becomes routine, is easy to keep, and actually asking these questions. And I think we've got so much around keeping the routine, when these real questions that we need to be asking each other, whether it's faith, smart, to strengthen our faith, and actually, you know, it's to strengthen each other. You know, I look at the early New Testament church, and they were in synagogues, reasoning over the word, you know what I mean, reasoning and actually talking with each other, and going over the Torah and going, you know what, so this is what's going on, you know? And these days it's become so much a case of, I'm going to motivate you to get through this week, and then you have to come back again, and not about, okay, right, your salvation, the process, and challenging ourselves. You may come from another angle and say, I didn't look at it like that. And it's about strengthening our faith. So it's crucial that we ask these questions even on a yearly basis, because we'll get revelation after revelation, not to get monotonous about coming to church, because once you realise that you're monotonously coming to church, that's when people get to my age and drop off. You know what I mean? And I've seen it happen a lot, because they go, what am I doing here in the first place? They forgot why they got saved, literally forgot.
Yeah.
It's that long. I got baptised when I was 12. Why did I get baptised? Was I forced? They forgot. Because I never got challenged over the years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They never, you know, we had the fresher course, never got really evolved. So that for me, this is why this is really crucial. From my personal, that's why I passionately push for this and support for this, is because it's crucial for us as Christians, no matter how young or old you're in the faith, to challenge these questions.
Yeah. And I would just kind of adding to that, obviously I agree. I've dedicated a lot of time to studying this kind of stuff, but I would say we shouldn't give the impression that every Christian needs to be an expert theologian, or I don't want to be anti-intellectual and I don't want to be over-intellectual. It's just that, you know, God has given every human being a mind and commanded them to love Him with all of their mind. So the mind that you have, use all of it for Him. You know, focus your mind, all of your capacity for thinking, focus it on Him and glorify Him with that. And so it's not, you know, that verse is always be prepared to give a reason for the hope that you have, which tells you a couple things. It tells you that there are reasons for your hope, and it tells you, you know, you don't need necessarily to have all the answers. That's not what this is about. I remember, so I studied, you know, what we're doing is called apologetics. That's the technical word for it. I remember when I arrived in Oxford to study this stuff, and I was terrified, to be honest. I knew I wanted to do it, I knew I was supposed to do it, but I was pretty terrified because I thought, you know, you go to somewhere like Oxford and you meet geniuses, you know, just walking down the street, and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this guy could ask me any question, and I'd have no idea what to say, you know? And so, by the end of that period of study, things had switched in my mind, where, okay, I had more knowledge and all that kind of stuff, but I now had a confidence, not that I could answer every single question, but that my faith it's actually reasonable. Yeah. It can compete in the world of ideas and stand up. And so even if I don't have the answer to that particular question, because of my lack of intelligence or my lack of eloquence or whatever, I can have confidence that actually there are good answers. And for the ones that are beyond our understanding, well, the good thing is I'm trusting the person and not just an idea, which is not a cop-out. It's talking about the essence of it. So, did you have, or is it long gone now?
Yeah, it's long gone, but it was just you both said it collectively, basically, and it's just a summary. So it's really said nothing major.
All right. Well, I'm asking the question: Is it important? And I do think it's important because of that verse, because it's the presentation that is made in the Bible is not simply believe it because I said so, but believe it because of this, that, and the other thing. For instance, when you read the Gospels, each of the four Gospels is attempting to convince you of the truth of the Gospel based on their testimony, their eyewitness testimony. Luke even says, I've made a list, I've compiled this account from eyewitnesses so that you can be sure of all the things that you're hearing. And so that's the intention of the Gospels, is to give you reasons to believe. And so that's what we see. That's what we see the disciples doing. That's what we see Jesus doing in different ways. He says, believe because of the miracles and because of the prophets. And so I do think that this is important to do. And there's a lot more to be said, obviously. But it is 9:30. We can carry on talking forever because we're all very interested in this. But just kind of a final closing word. Can faith be smart? The Christian faith offers itself as being based on certain evidence. The evidence of Jesus Christ. His life, his death, his resurrection. Those are things that happened in real time, in real history, and things that you can go out and investigate. And so, there's many different kind of clues that we could build a case with, but I think the ultimate one is the resurrection itself, and maybe we might deal with that in another session in detail. But that would be my encouragement, is to maybe go out and look into the resurrection. So I'm very grateful for all of you coming and for the really interesting conversation we've had and your contributions. So thank you for choosing to spend the night here. And I look forward to the next one. All right.